Hi, there's no volume on Zoom.
Can you hear us now?
How's that?
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, first item on the agenda is senior citizen exemption. Judith said the governor's made some changes. So do you want to walk us through it, Judith?
So currently the town, county, and the school have adopted the senior exemption, which is based on income for seniors over the age of 65. And currently the highest level the highest income you can get for the exemption right now is $37,400. Or yeah, $37,400. And she has now increased that level to the $58,400. It's on a sliding scale, which the town has adopted, as has the county and school. And I've spoken with the school, and they will be hopefully joining us on this as well. And what this will do is it will create a lesser tax burden for the seniors, and we'll spread it amongst all of the other taxpayers of the island.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, right now, the total amount of seniors receiving that exemption is 52. And I anticipate that number will definitely go up if this number does get adopted. And currently, the exempt value for the seniors total that gets spread out amongst the rest of the tax collection is $54,000. So that number would definitely grow as well.
Right.
So, and the numbers would go, like I said, from the 37,400 to the 58,000 as the lowest, or the highest income, I should say.
Mhm.
The lowest income would go from 29,000 to 50,000.
So at 50,000, you get the full exemption,
At 50,000, you'll get,
and there's a sliding scale between that and 58.
yes,
Okay,
from 5% to 50%.
right. And 50% is significant. I mean, but also if you're making 50 or less on this island, that is a significance that's needed.
And if you're on a fixed income,
Yeah,
which is what the seniors are,
yeah.
that's going to be a higher.
Yeah.
Higher number.
I think this is good.
So what do we have to do?
I believe it had to pass a resolution adopting the new numbers.
Yes.
There's a resolution that was passed in 2016, and I can give you that information.
Did you email that to us?
I did.
already? I think you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2004.
Have it?
Yes.
That we adopted it. Yeah,
2016, there was a slight increase,
right.
just a $2,000 increase.
I think Long Island jurisdictions have been pushing for this increase because upstate, these numbers are one thing. On Long Island, these numbers, yeah.
So I strongly encourage the change.
Okay, so we'll put it on the agenda for next town board meeting.
Great. Thanks, Judith.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
And we have to have a hearing? We have to set a hearing?
No, it's just a resolution.
Okay.
The law states that you could pass it by a resolution, local law, whatever. Back in 2004, the town board elected to do it by a resolution, and they had a public hearing in connection with it. So now just to amend the resolution, you just have to do it by a resolution, no hearing.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda, we're gonna get an update from Bill Lombardi.
No, Phil. Gloria.
Oh, I don't have that. Okay. I'm sorry, Bill. So what are we doing?
You're muted. Phil.
He's going to come and present.
Okay.
It's not like Italian Americans are interchangeable. I'm just saying.
Okay, so Phil is here. Phil's the chairman of the zoning board of appeals. Coco, can you put him on the screen?
If he starts talking.
Oh, okay, Phil, are you muted?
No, I'm not.
Okay, there you go.
All right, so
We're ready for you.
we're asking that the length of time that our approvals last for goes from 1 year to 2 years. What happens is after people come to the ZBA, they have to go to the Board of Health, and many times at the Board of Health, you're looking at an 18-month sort of minimum work period. So what we're having is a situation where just things are taking longer. And instead of forcing people to come back to renew for another year or missing their deadlines, we would rather just make it for 2 years and let people give people time to do their due diligence and get their approvals from the county so that they can move forward and get a building permit.
Seems like a no-brainer.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Makes sense.
this is in section 133-32H, and it says the expiration occurs within 1 year of the grant unless a building permit is obtained in the interim in that 1 year period. So it's whether you want to change this to be 2 years that you obtain a building permit, or like Southold has it, it's 3 years to get your CO. So they give an expiration of 3, get your CO within the 3, or this is just building permit within 1 to 2.
What happens if you don't get your CO?
Then the variance extinguishes.
Mhm.
Because the thing is, you don't want these to hang out there for so long because conditions change.
Right,
So you want people to act on them.
yeah.
So that's why you have, and, you could add some language in here that you can make a request after the time period. So if you're more comfortable with 2 years, you could allow the applicant to come in 1 month before the 2 year expiration and make a pitch to the zoning board to extend it for compelling reasons. There's all different ways you can go about it.
What about that? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I do like this 3 year CO thing because there are a lot of open, building department winds up with a lot of open permits. And this is sort of another further incentive for people to get a CO. But so let's just say you're 2 months away from your 3 year expiration and you're 6 months away from being ready for a CO.
Yeah,
Then it would be
in
a fairly
Southold,
straightforward-
you can ask the zoning board, again, for some
Yeah.
compelling reason to
Yeah.
give you an extension. And I think they keep it, max it at 1 year extension after.
Right, right. Oh, okay. Phil, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
So for me, the simplest thing is we are requesting the change of exactly 2 words in this. 1 going to 2 and year going to years. I think it's pretty simple the way it is. And I would recommend that is what we do. And if we want to, again, at some point down the road, re-examine this and revisit this, we could. But for me, this is the simplest, easiest, most straightforward way to get done what really does need to be done.
I agree with.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that. And Stephen, the other thing with the COs is, it seems, I don't think it's anything new, but it seems to be happening more often. People have their houses for sale. They are in contract and they need a CO. They never bothered to get one.
Well,
That's why I'd be nervous about putting that in.
No, well, this is actually facilitating that because all they have to do to save the variance is get a building permit and they never have to close out the CO. So the way Southold put the hammer to them and said, listen, you have 3 years and you have to get the CO within that period. So it's up to the board.
Well, let's start with the 2 years and then
Yeah, because
let's bring the building department in
my
and talk
question
about it.
is, okay, so someone doesn't get the CO in 3 years, but they've like almost got all the construction done and then it's extinguished. Like what?
No, they can ask for an extension.
Okay.
for
Yeah, but if
compelling
they
reasons.
miss the ask, then you end up with this weird.
Well, really,
Yeah, where they-
my point was, that people specifically don't get the CO.
Correct.
They do work.
I know, absolutely.
So,
But this again compels getting a CO and doing your due diligence to get it.
But
So
if I could interject something, it only compels people on the 10% or 5% of building permits that are issued that need a variance. If the town wants to do something about C of Os and people not closing out their building permits, I think that's something that should be across the board and not only on things that require a variance.
yeah. Yeah, that's why I said, I think we should, go with the 2 year right now. And then that's something we need to address.
absolutely, and you could, other municipalities, and what Phil was saying, have adopted codes where you have to get an updated CO prior to sale.
Right. Okay. There seems to be a problem. It's,
Definitely.
People are gonna be hard pressed to get
Yeah.
everything done in 3 years, between
Yeah.
the health department and the permitting, everything else.
okay. All right, Phil, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go to our wastewater project. Joe Fenora and Pio Lombardo are here to give us an update on where we are with our wastewater project. Joe, you want to start it off?
Yes, hello, everyone. So I'm joined here today with Pio Lombardo of Lombardo Associates to present our final engineering report. Pio has brought a brief presentation similar to what was offered when we first presented our solutions and draft engineering report. He's going to review a number of the comments and changes that were made in that public discussion several months ago. And ultimately, there is no, I just want to reiterate, there are no new developments to this project. This is the conclusion of the engineering report phase. Once this has been finalized, then perhaps adopted by the town board, we'll be transitioning to the design phase of the project. And so this is somewhat of a formality to review all of these changes, but it's certainly another opportunity for the board to review our progress thus far and submit any final thoughts or comments as we move to the next phase. So I'll turn this over to Pio now. He has a presentation to share, so he'll need screen sharing abilities from the clerk, and then we'll kick this off if there's no other questions from the board.
Pretty good to go, Joe.
Okay. Good afternoon, Supervisor and town board members and other participants. Pleasure to meet with you again. As Joe just mentioned, I'm going to present a summary of the engineering report, which I believe the town board has seen previously. So I'm going to go through the beginning parts of the presentation relatively rapidly and focus more time on the end of it, which is the recommendations on moving forward. The scope of the project, and I trust you can see the presentation and it's in good color and all that. So let me know if it's otherwise. Any event, as you know, the scope of the project was initially for all the municipal buildings, and there's a total of there was a total of 7 buildings that was in the initial RFP. The school was added. The supervisor and the town's efforts to combine them, I think, was wise. So we're looking at without the school, the design flow is 4,200 gallons per day, and with the school, we're looking at basically 6,200 gallons per day, and those are all code flows. The study area is, as you know, the center of Shelter Island, and we present this slide because it illustrates that the center of Shelter Island, where all the municipal buildings and the school in particular are located at the top of the watersheds, and wastewater that's being discharged here getting into the ground can flow in a number of different directions. But a key aspect of being at the top of a watershed is that any discharges in those locations will be within the groundwater for decades, the longest time. And in this case, it's I believe it's up to 50 years plus. The sub-watersheds of the island are shown on this figure here that I'm pointing to. And it again just reaffirms that the study area is right, affects a number of other watersheds. Much of the basis for the project have been about the high nitrate levels in groundwater, and this illustrates the data and projections that was made by the U.S. Geological Survey, I believe 5-6 years ago, that showed heavy influence of septic systems on nitrate levels in the groundwater, basically in the center of Shelter Island. Now, what we did as part of our work, we did what's referred to as a wastewater needs analysis, which we looked at property by property. And the way we do this is we looked at the 3 categories. Functional means that it's not working or that wastewater is breaking out to the ground. or breaking on or backing up. We didn't know there's no functional needs. In other words, the wastewater that's generated in these buildings does flow away. The performance issue is the serious one, is that there's insufficient nitrogen removal and possibly the emerging contaminants. And I trust everyone's reading the news about the concerns about PFOA and the PFOS, which is a significant one. The other factor we look at is there sufficient space? And the major issue there is the well to septic separation requirement that's in the code. Now, in terms, by the way, in terms of the PFOA concerns, I'll share with you the news in Boston here today. The city of Cambridge, which has its own water supply, is now abandoning that and switching to the regional system because of the PFOA contamination in their water system. That's a huge, huge impact on them for a major city. Now, this slide illustrates the separation between wells and septic tank and the leaching pools associated with that. And anything within those circles is unavailable. So you'll see that there's only two areas that where there's sufficient space between on the properties where a wastewater system could be located. One of them is at the fire department, where I'm showing here, and then the there's the fire department there. The other area is between the right next to the post office where those vacant parcels are. They would have to be combined, and then there would be sufficient room. And that's this area here that I'll show even a little better in a second. So that was the basis for our recommending to the town that a community-wide wastewater system, basically a sewer system, be implemented for the area, and that the wastewater be brought to a location for treatment and ultimate disposals. We looked at multiple options with and without the school, multiple location options, in addition to the fire department, the school, and private properties in the area. We examined in detail the town-owned properties, because naturally that's the easier implementation route. And for those properties, the five, we characterized them as either desirable or undesirable. And the two desirable ones were the Wickes airfield and 16 Manwaring Road. The airfield is not available. We later learned because of the CPF funding that was used for its procurement. So the 16 Manwaring Road was then the proposed location for the wastewater treatment system. There were many private parcels and other parcels that we looked at. This is just the short list. And we did our best to comb the available lands on the island. Now, what a wastewater collection, treatment, and disposal system would look like, we did some layouts, basically in the municipal buildings and school area. The yellow lines are gravity pipes that would collect wastewater from the various municipal buildings, including the school, bring that wastewater to the library property, because the library is the low point in the area. And then putting in a pump station at that location, and then pumping the wastewater to the proposed treatment and disposal site. This shows the route that the proposed sewer line would take, basically on the northern side of North Ferry Road. and then going to the treatment site at 16 Man-Waring Road. That's a force main. We're looking at probably a 2, no more than a 3-inch pipe. And in terms of the pump station, we're looking at pretty small facility. It's not gonna, there would be a need for an emergency generator. We've looked into this issue, and during the design, we'll need to get into a lot more details if the emergency generators that even exist at the school, at the municipal buildings, would be available. And then at the treatment site, this slide just shows it without on the portrait view. And then wastewater would be brought into the treatment site. And then the treatment system layout is shown here, where my pointer is. And then we're proposing disposal system would consist of pressurized shallow drain fields are proposed here, basically drain fields for the area. And then we indicated the reserve areas and all of the setbacks, and all of these setbacks comply with county requirements for setbacks, even though the site and the permits are issued by DEC. We also examined where the water was going to, after it gets discharged into the ground, you'll see the direction of the groundwater in that area. So it would go into that abatement, and we're talking about effluent quality of being total nitrogen of about 3 milligrams per liter, as we're achieving in comparable facilities, and that we would be including disinfection and treatment for the emerging contaminants. The next slide just illustrates the treatment technology that's being proposed, and this advanced oxidation process is the technique that's used for dealing with the emerging contaminants. That's all state-of-the-art works, and the new technologies are coming up, are being developed because this is a serious issue nationwide. Then on the any connection to the system will require a septic tank effluent treatment system, with a pump. There's nobody that is connected to the system in that manner, but to connect to a pressurized line, that's the way it would need to be. The school may need to do this. We're not involved in the details of the school connection, but they're likely going to need a pump on their property to bring wastewater over to the library site. This photograph here is an illustration of a comparable facility over in Hampton Bays that uses the same techniques that we're talking about for 16 Man-Waring Road. And this site's capacity is basically twice the capacity of what's being proposed at Man-Waring. The facility basically consists of an operations building and then a good number of tanks in which water is moved from one tank to the other for the various treatment techniques. Project costs were estimated at for a total $3.1 million. We estimated annual O&M at $74,000. We provided a very detailed estimate, and there are techniques that the town can use to reduce those operational costs in particular. And then we made projections here on, depending on grant funding that may be available, what would be the grant amount, and then if that balance was either, if it was not paid for by the town, if it was amortized over 20 or 30 years, what the annual fee would be. My understanding from the discussions that have been held in the past is that the town will likely pay this with existing funds rather than bonding. But you have, these numbers just show you the impact of if you did bond it. Okay, the basis of the cost estimate is as shown on this table, in which the Sewer cost on the per linear foot, we believe is a conservative number. But with the COVID and the supply chain issues, many of these these cost factors, we believe these are still relevant. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions or discussion that the town board may have, or any others that speak on this issue. Thank you.
So Pio, what's the next step? You'll start actually designing the system?
Exactly. Then the next steps would be the preparation of construction plans and specifications and submittal of the documents for DEC approval, and submitting an application for a discharge permit. And those would be done concurrently. The application for the discharge permit along with the preparation of the plans and specs.
Pio, along with that, the plans and specs, it was maybe just a throwaway comment, but you said that we're not involved with the school's connection to the system that we're designing. Is that what you meant?
Well,
Okay.
no, yes, the school.
Well, yeah. Go ahead, Pio.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Go ahead.
the school is bringing all of their wastewater to the edge of their property.
Okay.
So that's the difference. We're not picking it up until the edge of their property. The school has a number of discharges from the school, so they have to consolidate that piping. So that's what we're not involved in that consolidation.
Okay.
All right. So I'm just, the project would basically just pick it up, let's say at the property line.
Right. What do you think the DEC timeline is going to be?
What, for their permitting?
Yeah.
Well, an interesting question. On the one hand, I believe this project should be permitted relatively quickly because we're in compliant with all county standards. So it should, and they've seen the data before, and this type of facility has been permitted by Suffolk County in the past. And we now have well over a year's data on the performance of the system. And that demonstrates it's achieving total nitrogen of less than 3, consistently for over a year. And it's did that from day one. Whereas the county allows treatment facilities to be not what they call not in permit compliance or not in steady state, what they use for 3 years. So again, the systems will be meeting permit, immediately after startup.
Joe Fenora, I think we need to have a sit down with the library because, they're getting ready to make a proposal to do an expansion. And we talked about it in concept, but we have to make sure that they're, on board with this before we get too far into the
Well, and also to
designing.
make sure that the line where PO has the line designed is in conflict with
Right.
the foundation
Right.
expansion that they do,
Yeah,
which
no,
fine.
that's an excellent point because, as you know, the library, the low point on the library is towards the street. So
Right.
naturally, that's the best location for the pump station. Anything different than that is going to have implications on either forcing it to be deeper or forcing some of the connections to be pressurized. I mean, the other option, frankly, is to put a pump on all the properties
Right.
and call it a day.
My only thought was to, instead of have the line go behind the building and then cut up around the parking lot, have it go around the front of the building, and then they have no problem expanding back. So it just kind of talk to the library and see what their plans are. I do know that's the low point and it's a slower grade change.
Right.
So it makes sense, or go around the perimeter of their property instead of cut through the middle, because they have that lot next door. So that's just something to consider when you talk to the library.
So Joe, that's on us, I think. Okay.
Yeah, Pio, can I just ask again about the, I think I've asked this before, but I would like a refresher. The annual operating and maintenance cost, that's 74,000. That's based on what? What's going to be in there?
Yeah, bear with me and let me pull it up, and that way you'll see
Okay,
it. Give me a second here. But I think it's wise, naturally, it's wise to meet with the library. And that's obviously is going to affect how we deal with that. So, yeah, I'm going to need to share this again. So if that can be addressed.
Chair.
Go ahead, you're ready.
Okay. Here we go. Okay, it's loading up, so bear with it. I'm pulling up the report so you can see the table in the report where it's got all the detail. Okay. So let me do screen share. Where Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so table C2 presents the whoops, I'm sorry. There we go. Yeah, here we go. That I just enlarged it. Okay, so table C2 provides you the basis. On the one hand, it's an operator. Okay, we're assuming here, 2 visits per week. Okay, which is what's being required at the Hampton Bays facility, and using that hourly rate. That's the hourly rate for an operator. Okay, so that makes up obviously a significant percentage of the cost. Then there's the sampling cost. Every month, the wastewater needs to be collected and sent to a certified lab for analysis. So that's that 11,500. We provide a little bit more in the first couple of years because we usually do extra sampling just to optimize the operation. There's going to be electricity. That's our estimate on the electricity costs. And then there's engineering oversight that we usually provide on something like this. The reality, we can reduce that. And that consists of either us or another engineering firm just looking at the data as it's being collected, and frankly, most importantly, looking at the electronic data that's collected instantaneously. Because remember, this system has got a PLC, basically a computer operating it, and you want to be looking at what that data is telling you to make sure you proactively deal with any issues. We've got an allowance in there for collection system maintenance issues and contingency. And then we're recommending that a budget be established for what we call repair and replacement. So, that $11,000 was generated, that number was generated by looking at all the equipment that exists, what's its useful life, what's its replacement costs, and basically saying, you really want to put $11,000 away every year to fix the roof when it leaks. Now, many communities naturally try to save money and may postpone this. Sometimes we recommend you can delay that for, let's say, the first 3 years, but you want to, because nothing should break either because it's under warranty or, during that time, and then make the contributions then if the user charge is an issue. But those are all the components of it, and there's ways to reduce costs on those, but there's not a lot of room.
No,
Mr. Lombardo, on item number 4 on the sludge pumping and disposal.
Right.
So that's only going to be done once every 5 years?
Yes, that's our recommendations and experience, that properly sized septic tanks don't need to be pumped more often.
So that sludge is contained in, and could you just explain to the public what that sludge is contained in?
Yeah, no, good point. Let me, if I, basically, I'd like to go back to that figure, but I don't want to make it cumbersome here. But the, yeah, if I can change this, can I change the screens here?
yeah, I mean, try.
Okay, how do I do that? Okay. All right, let me try that. Okay. Let's. Oh. Okay. Okay, just for reference, so the wastewater from the building goes into the septic tanks, the solids drop out, and then the effluent from that goes to the treatment facility. So that solids accumulation at some point needs to be removed. The rule of thumb is that whenever the solids exceed 1/3 the liquid level is the time that it needs to be removed. But frankly, those rules for when it went to a drain field to protect the drain field. We don't have to pump the septic tank more frequently than we need to. So, and the way that we would recommend to know that is really when look at the quality of the effluent coming into the treatment plant. And if it's not deteriorating because of excess solids coming in, don't worry about it. And because frankly, we would not expect solids accumulation to be happening very much from these facilities, because there's not food. You really don't have a lot of food preparation work. You're not producing a lot of solids there. I wouldn't be surprised if the frequency is over 7 years. I mean, 10 years for that matter.
Pio, when you design this building and site it, can you, it seems to me it would be pretty easy to orient that roof so that if we want at some point in the future to add some solar panels, we could.
Oh, yes. I mean, I would love for us to examine the use of solar panels on the building right from the start.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great.
No, I mean, I think that's a great suggestion, and it makes a lot of, because, you know, however the roof is designed is going to affect, obviously, the solar panel. So it should be integrated so that the solar panel, let me call it, is the roof.
Yeah, that would be terrific. I mean, there's some great new technology out there. And one other question, back to that annual engineer expense. Could Joe, don't hate me, Joe, could Joe take that on? Joe Fenora?
Let me say yes and no. I mean, we would urge it to be, you really want engineering oversight from a wastewater environmental engineer, because they're going to be looking at the data and interpreting and saying, we got to do something, or no, we got no. And now we do that as part of our project because we can look at it and say, uh-oh, something's going on, and we've got to get out there within, let's say, X number of days. Or frankly, what we do on our projects is something's happening, and then we alert the operator to do something. And frankly, the other important aspect is that it keeps the operator in check. And it's really like supervising them, and because you know they have certain skills, but report writing and you know you want that individual providing more of a supervisory and oversight.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Hey, Pio, as far as the testing, you know, it's been on the news recently, you know, the wastewater, they samples, like They found COVID, they found some other diseases. Is that something we'd be able to do?
Well, we could, but it's not part of the program because now that's expensive.
Okay.
And it would have to be sent to, specialized labs. I mean,
Alright.
what we're doing here is, the only thing we're doing is grabbing samples and sending them to a lab
Okay.
for their, because they're a certified lab by the state. So anything that gets added, it's just going to be laboratory costs.
Gotcha. All right. And Pio, as far as the actual drainage field, we can screen that, right? There's no limit to what we can we can hide it with vegetation, right?
Yeah, I mean, no one's going to know it's there, in my opinion.
Right.
It'll, typically it's covered with grass.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we would expect there. It's just going to look like a nice field. That's this is frankly a classical drain field that are used, throughout the country, and you're not going to know it's there. So that would all be part of the landscaping that we would want to engender here, and I would anticipate that during the preliminary designs and layouts that there would be, let me call it public meetings or meetings with the board about what's being proposed. We're not going to just hand you a design and say this is it. So because we're going to,
I think one of the fears is, we keep referring to it as a treatment plant, and it's really not a plant. It's really all submerged filtration.
exactly. Yeah, that's been our style, is that everything's got to be below ground so people don't really know it's there, so to speak. And that the only thing you really see above ground is the operations building that houses, it's the electrical equipment in particular that is needed there. And it's a building is, let's say, 20 by 20 for discussion. It's pretty, so it's a garage. It's a garage.
Right.
So, but it would be good to, have a solar on it, and we can even look into any grants that could be for solar applications. So,
Joe, you have anything else?
No, I would just point out that the photo that was displayed, with the gravel surface, that was a choice for that particular application. And just like we've been discussing, we have other options for surface preparations for this project. Grass is one of them.
exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Yeah. And these big covers, that's just for this case. Basically, there's just going to be a lot of manholes and, or people holes, whatever we want to call them. And they're covers, and they come in various colors. So,
There are other examples of projects that are in parking lots, but again, that's a choice for that facility. That was something that was suitable for that location, but there's no need to have this area, covered in asphalt or covered by this gravel. So those are specific to those other projects.
right.
All right, so Joe, the only thing really we need to do is get together with the library.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Pio, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Supervisor and board members. I appreciate your attention and pleasure working for the town.
Thank you.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is related.
Joe, can you stay? Yeah,
Yeah, Joe, he
Joe.
knows.
Yeah, okay.
Is related to the wastewater project. This is using the WQI funds for this project. Joe?
Yes, so we submitted an application to the WQI committee, the local committee, for funding support to the contract addendum as we move into design services. That application was voted on successfully to support funding the project extension, and so that now sits at the town board level for approval execute. I believe there's a need for a public hearing, but at this stage, I think it's somewhat procedural, so I would defer to whomever understands how that part of the process works.
Stephen, do we have a hearing or just
Well, all right, Joe, first things first, I just want to make sure that what we're doing falls within the definition of a wastewater treatment improvement project. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Are you referring to the governing conditions of the committee?
It's our chapter 50.
Right, so that's
No.
specifically what the committee reviewed to ensure compliance with their I don't know if it's their mandate, but within their abilities to provide funding. And it was.
The definition just says the planning, design, construction, acquisition, enlargement, extension, or alteration of a wastewater treatment facility, including alternative systems to a sewage treatment plant or traditional septic system to treat, neutralize, stabilize, eliminate, blah, 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 blah. So I'm sure it does, right? And that's a general definition.
That's right.
Okay, so pursuant to our code, it only has to be done via resolution. So section 5034, certification required. It says, in addition, no monies from the CPF shall be expended for a water quality improvement project by the town, unless such project also has been certified by the town board by resolution pursuant to this article. In making such certification, the town board shall find as follows, and there's a list of things you have to find. And that's what we'll do, and we'll go through in the resolution. I know historically you've had public hearings. I think it may have been, unless someone has other, law for me to review, I think it may have been a misinterpretation of town law section 64E that says no rights or interests in real property shall be acquired unless there's a public hearing. So, but again, the town board may, under their own volition, have a public hearing, even if it's not required. But that's where we are with that. My reading of it, it's just a plain vanilla resolution.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and look at my notes from setting up WQI, because it was, what we did originally was we did a blanket public hearing for septic, residential septic rebate systems, so that we would only have to do resolutions for individual, rebates awarded to homeowners. Well, I'm just gonna go back and see if there's something.
Yeah, if there is, by all means, provide.
18 as to why we were under the impression that we had to.
Okay.
okay?
Well, and just so the public knows, the Water Quality Improvement Board went over this. Joe did a presentation, and James Eklund as chair, wrote a letter describing the decision-making process and the vote by that committee to award this
5-0.
5-0, to say that, this was an appropriate use of WQI funds.
Okay. All right, next on the list, we had gotten, actually Gordon Gooding had gotten a letter concerning the New York Open Space Regional Advisory Committee. This is a committee that's been was put in place in the right around 2016, and needs to be updated. So they need some representation from the town. DJ, do you have anything? You spoke with somebody on it.
No.
Oh, you didn't speak with that lady?
No, I didn't speak with her. I just said would be okay if we appointed somebody at our next town board meeting, which is next week. So that would be fine. She said that's about when they'll be wrapping it up.
Okay.
So that'll be good. So we just have to decide who.
Yeah. Okay, we'll talk to Gordon and see if anybody on the committee or WAC or WCAC or whoever we want. Okay. Okay, that's it on the agenda. We'll go around the table. Meg?
Talk about application. Mr. Softy put an application last week, or
the 2 weeks before, when everybody left.
Business on town property.
Business on town property. Yes. Yeah.
Hysterical.
You can't read my mind. So we did receive that application, but we didn't have time to review it because we received it the morning of the meeting.
Right.
So we all know Mr. Softy drives around the island, goes from beach.
I think
Bring
the
it
issue,
like Santa Claus from house that.
I think the issue is, certainly you're allowed on Shelter Island, to go on the streets and everything, but the way the ordinance reads, you can't do business within 500 feet of the beach without a special permit. And, our process is, we have to get the applications in by May for the season. And then we extended it this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually by March.
Yeah, just so you know. for next year.
So we can review all the applications. So, it's kind of it's the end of the season to begin with, but it's also kind of the timing's not right. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I
just wanted to make the business.
Just I'm taking to the program. Okay. And stay.
Sorry. And then I want to just,
You say your name just.
State your name and who you are.
my name is Mr. Mehmet.
Your arm is just on.
Yes. And then I want to build this year's because this is my territory. From the Mr. Softy.
Right.
I just want to give them my business cards and then next year's, I don't care how much it costs me this year's. Just I'm gonna work the 2 weeks. That's it.
Right.
That's why I'm getting to this permit.
Okay. So I think what we'll do is we'll make sure you have the permits in place, the applications. So, and we can discuss it with you before, next season.
Okay.
but stay 500 feet away from the beaches.
If
Beaches.
Because we've had other late applications and we've said no. That's,
okay.
so we can't say yes to you and no to everybody. It's not.
Okay. It's not fair.
I wanted to come specifically for the fireworks. We said, well, no, you missed the application. I know.
Okay.
And we try to limit how many businesses we do
Yes.
have there also.
You
So,
want me to come to March?
yeah, we'll be in touch. I mean, we have the application.
Yes.
So we'll send you a letter.
Okay.
And it's time to come back and.
But if you don't hear from us by March 1st, please
Okay. Yes.
don't want to.
I worked in South Old Greenport, it's been like the 13 years over there. Now they give me the Shelter Island too.
Okay.
And
Okay,
We just have different rules.
yes. Okay.
thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. See you March.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Winthrop Road.
That's it.
How'd you know he was Mr. Softy? Oh.
Well, now we know a little something about Meg.
What it was.
Meg's on a first name basis.
I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
If I remember something.
Anything, the Green Expo, you wanna?
Oh, yeah. So long ago now because it was week.
Yeah.
I think it went very well. We had a nice consistent turnout. I know that the WAC committee, the Water Advisory Committee table was very busy. We had a lot of good input on the comp plan. And I think overall it was a success. So
Great.
I think it went really well.
Yeah. I took over 2 dozen pictures and sent them to Tim, and Tim put them up on his site, so I took one of every booth. But it was very well attended. It was hot, it got hot. One thing, Meg, I would like to consider for next year. I know they go from 10 to 5 on the arts and crafts, but that factor in the afternoon of going from like 10 to 2, maybe 9 to 1 or. Yeah, I know you start an hour before.
It was hot.
It gets a little hot. So I would recommend, even if you bumped it an hour from 9 to 1. I mean, ideally, I think the same thing about the arts and crafts. You're going to get people early.
Yeah.
I would start the arts and crafts at 9 a.m. and maybe 8 to 12 would be great.
Yeah.
People go home for lunch. When you get a hot day like that, everybody goes to the beach. There's not many people around after 12:30. I left there at about 12:30, 1 o'clock. And the numbers were starting to dwindle quickly because of the weather.
Yeah.
It does get hot, but it was a great, well organized. And Tim Pertel and company, they did a nice job organizing it. Excellent.
Jim, before you start,
Yeah, I still have.
I'm sorry.
Now that I'm
Yeah,
back to
yes,
this,
yes.
we also had a comp plan meeting and there's 3 new chapters out on the website. So please look at them, give us your comments. And we're going to be reviewing those. There's also a timeline posted on the website. So you can kind of see where we're going. And it shows all of the public workshops. So we're going to be having a public workshop every month and a CPAC meeting every month now until through December. I don't have the new year scheduled yet because, that's a while away. But we will be having 2 meetings a month for the rest of the year.
Yeah. And maybe more.
Maybe more.
We might add.
If we can add extra days, we're
Yeah.
going to have like an actual sit down for a long block of time and really work through some of these
Right,
chapters.
if we start to slow down.
Yep.
So when's the next public meeting?
The next public meeting is September 19th from 7 to 9. And then our regular CPAC meeting is the 26th from 6:30 to usually 8. So the 19th is the next public workshop. No problem. So yeah, that's kind of the schedule we have going. We only got through 1 chapter last time, so we're going to try to do the other 2 chapters at the next meeting. So get your input, and I'm just going to keep including it in the chapters as we go along.
Thanks, Meg.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, Joe, do you have your hand up for something?
Yes, the timing somewhat impeccable, but we just received notice from Bridget Fleming's office that the project application for construction funding, the amount of $250,000 from Suffolk County WQPRP was awarded to the town for the wastewater project. So we're following up in our office, but I thought I'd share the news. It's just came into my inbox a few moments ago.
Great, thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Joe. Good
We
news.
have another grant application from New York State out there for up to
Significantly
2,
more.
up to $2.5 million. It's only 75% of the cost, so it would be $2,337,000. But we put in for $2.5 million in case we have cost overruns, and that's the New York State Water Quality Improvement Program.
That's right.
Yes.
Yep. So this is of the 2, this is the smaller, but we're happy and thankful for the support from the county.
And it also
Oh,
helps us, we can use the county grant as part of our local match on the 25%.
Oh, nice.
So it's kind of like a
Yeah, double,
there.
yeah,
So.
great. Okay.
Yes, Hunters meeting, I'd just like to announce the Hunters around here. Their committee, Bo, announced that they will be meeting here at Town Hall on Thursday, September 8th at 7 p.m. That will focus on the deer management program and some of the directions that we might be going with that. So that's September 8th, Thursday night, 7 o'clock. We hadn't had one in a couple of years because of COVID, but we're
So
resurrected that.
Jim, that's the hunters that are in the program to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Like to congratulate the Shelter Island Fire Department for their pancake breakfast. It was well attended, did a great job on that. Food was spectacular. Just really thought that, the kids got they love getting into the trucks. Took a few pictures of the grandkids climbing the trucks and being inside them. They really appreciated that. And the guys there that were working that morning, volunteering again, their time was so cordial to the kids. I want to thank everybody that was responsible for working in the kitchen and serving literally hundreds and hundreds of meals to people. It was excellent and the service was great. Thank you. We also would like to thank the people for inviting us to the cookout over at the Legion. That was Saturday evening. They had their second annual cook-off there. Well attended, a lot of people. Food was great. Again, great turnout from the community. You had the snapper derby on one corner, you had the food on the other, and the next day you had the pancake breakfast. A lot of good community involvement over the weekend, and good competition, good friendly competition. And they announced the winners. They posted it online. But congratulations to all the people that participated in setting that up. Really appreciate it. And congratulations to the snapper derby people that ran it very successful. Once again, it's a major fundraiser for the Lions Club. So congratulations to those people. Elizabeth Hanley was away on vacation, but she had just gotten back. We were talking about the survey that I put out and kind of wanted to clear up some misinformation about that. That was an attempt by me to survey the people in Silver Beach. Because to be honest with you, I was getting very concerned about the referendum in November about whether we have it, postpone it, we should have it or should not have it. And I needed to find out from people that live in my neighborhood how they felt. I know I'm no longer the president, but I went through the president. He circulated amongst the board sent it out. I did send it to, I did hand carry it literally at the Green Options and gave it to the people that were in the tents, because these are people that are in the know. And I handed out another 10 or 15 there. So probably about 25 handed out. I've already received back 20. So I picked up 5 more this morning. I only had 15 as of yesterday. I went home at lunchtime. I went through the first 10. I need another hour and a half to go through the second 10. I told Elizabeth, the survey is different. There are different questions there. There's good information in there. Where do you get your information? What do you support? Could you support the November referendum as you now know it? I will tell you the overwhelming number of people thus far, and a very limited number of the first 10 surveys that I've took, are definitely looking for more information, exact information, what's going to be built if we are going to face this. Which is coming, correct, which is coming. And it probably will be produced within the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
That's the plan. So I'm personally sitting back, waiting to see that happen and circulate that new information. A majority of people got their information through the SI Reporter, believe it or not, very few people through town board meetings, but I can break all that information down on the surveys. Maybe I'll end up getting another 10 and I'll have that report for you next week. I'm going to share those reports immediately with Elizabeth because she wants to go through them with our committee and look at some of the data as well. So I will share that with her. I had a meeting with Valerie from the Peconic-Estuary Partnership yesterday on our top goals. So obviously Joe and the supervisor and the town board and Jennifer have been working, to look out for grant monies for our top projects. The Peconic-Estuary Partnership asked us for our top 3. I sent them 5. I labeled the top 3 plus 2 additional. Those obviously included West Neck Water Infrastructure, Municipal Wastewater, which was our #1 project, Fresh Pond, Ferry Terminals, Heights Treatment Plant, and a distant one is on Real Point because it needs further study. So she has all of those. I went through all of those projects with her. She took a lot of notes, and they are trying their best. I already got an email back from her that I shared with the supervisor, shared with Joe Fenora and with Jen. I don't know if I CC'd supervisor, but I definitely CC'd Jen and Joe about some of the things that they're pursuing for additional monies. So the focus here, folks, is on trying to get funding. That's the total thing. When I took over the Peconic-Estuary Partnership as chairman of the East End government, that was my focus. My focus is on all 5 towns are looking for money to fund environmental projects. And these environmental projects are key to getting them done. They don't get done without proper funding. So that's the thrust of where we're at.
Jim, can I ask you a question? Have you heard anything from who are we waiting for? The Army Corps of Engineers on Real Point?
Yes. Yeah. Well, we were waiting for that. The Senate had approved it. The House had not. Funding wise, I did call him a few weeks back, and he's informed me that they're still waiting for the final approval. That once that final approval comes, he doesn't anticipate any problems. This is what's his name? Mark Willie, correct. Thank you. I always have to go to Margaret for those quick things every year. Mark Willie, who does a great job for us. And just want to thank him for staying on top of this, but we can't move with that project. That's an expensive project. We definitely need the Army Corps support on that. Because they hopefully, when they come out with their recommendations, depending on what the town, it'll be very similar to First Coastal. We'll have a smorgasbord on the menu. We'll get to pick and choose where we want to go with the project. But the good news is they'll fund 65 to 70% of it. Then we'll have to go out and try to get other means to fund the other 30 to 35% to get that project off. But that is not shovel ready. What we're focusing on them now is the ones that are more shovel ready, like we did today with the municipal wastewater. Fresh Pond is getting very close to moving out. Those are the ones that we are prioritizing now. But we are literally working on all 4 or 5 of those major projects. I did meet with, Joe and I did meet with Stella a couple of days back. It was a fruitful meeting. We talked about we're at a point of pivoting the focus of the project goals. So I don't want to elaborate on that because Stella is still sitting down with some of her groups of people. So it's a work in progress. But I will report back to the board as soon as I get back from Stella on certain provisions that she's looking into. The other thing we had, the last 2 things is I would encourage everybody. Supervisor's going to be there. Our police chief, Dr. Dolger, and I'm hoping 100 people from the community will take the 1 hour tomorrow night to come to Fisk Field to the basketball court. Last year we had about 65 people. We have a great number of speakers. Emily Krause is going to lead it off on loss. Pastor Steve Atkinson from the Presbyterian Church is going to conduct some prayer and moment of silence. Marty Clark is going to talk about surviving and thriving, which is important. We're going to have a presentation by Danielle on the road to recovery. And this is from New Hope Rising in West Hampton, who's been very successful with their drug programs. We're also going to have Steve Sachs, a local guy who is going to talk about supporting families and building community. And we're going to have Drew Harvey, who's going to talk about fitness for recovery. And we're going to end the program with Gina Krause, who's going to talk about hope for the future. And we'll actually end the presentation with Julia King playing some healing music. This program is being sponsored by the town, the Shelter Island Library, that Shelter Island Health and Wellness Group, as well as HUGS, which is an organization stationed in Sag Harbor. And we have a whole bunch of other people that I will thank from White Oak Farms and Becky Smith from the Shelter Island Florist, and a bunch of other people, Jackie Carnivogel from HUGS and Steve Abido, who's going to do the sound system for us. It's a great program. It's a worldwide program. It's a candlelight vigil. And basically what it is, the whole goal of it is to call attention to an epidemic, a health issue that is literally worldwide, but is killing America. You know, there are certain areas of America in Ohio, in West Virginia, and a lot of the Appalachian countries where opioid use is at severe epidemic. The east end of Long Island has not been immune from this. We've been touched by this issue in the past, and we're going to do our darndest to come together, because there's one thing I know is A, we have the resources here to be able to make a difference. And B, we can do a better job. We'll always improve. You can always get out there and do a better job in terms of educating and preventing and reaching out. And the other thing is the big H word, of course, of healing. Just your presence there tomorrow night helps those families that have been hurting and helps them heal. Now, as I shared with the board, I was out, in the Thinard Ranch. That was all about healing. And I think here on the island, we can go a long way to heal this issue by just physically being present tomorrow night. So I urge you all to please attend. I want to thank Chief Reed for putting out the sign to remind everybody of this. And
What time?
7 p.m. 7 p.m. start. Will be over 8 o'clock. We have candles that'll be issued, but they won't be the burning candles anymore, because we won't mess with the wax. So we have actual little flashlight kinds of candles.
Sure, 7, because I have 7:30.
Yeah, 7 o'clock. It starts promptly. We'll be there at 6 o'clock to set up, and weather looks good. And beginning, I was looking at the weather for tomorrow night. It looked like thunder showers coming through, and I was thinking about the tent or possibly using the community center. But as it turns out now, it looks like we're going to be okay. So we'd love to be outside. It works so well on that basketball court. The last thing I would like to leave you with is a serious issue that the town board has to address sooner rather than later. BJ and I talked about this at the very start before the meeting, but I'm going to share this with the people. Everybody read in Newsday and heard on the local news about the violations in Noyak from rental properties where it resulted in a fire. And then I don't know what's the cause of the fire, but obviously it was in the middle of the night and people did not wake up because there were no alarm systems, there were no CO2 detectors, there were no fire detectors, there were code violations, 58 different violations in that home. Two young ladies that died there, ages 21 and 19. The parents escaped along with another sibling that jumped from the second floor. Inspectors found smoke detectors disconnected and without batteries. They also found no carbon monoxide detectors and other plumbing and electrical violations. Violations issued by the town were not related to the deaths and are being heard in Southampton Town Justice Court. The owners lacked permits as a vacation rental. It did not undergo a safety inspection before the fire, officials said, which prompts me to what I sat down about a week ago. I circulated it to everybody, including our building department, and shared it with Reed Karen, who's in charge there. And it talked about an inspection of 14 things. It goes to the exterior of the house. Is the house clearly marked with 4-inch numerals on the road? So God forbid in the middle of the night, we can locate a house. A swimming pool, 3 or 4 things about the pool, and everybody has, those are the regular things about fencing and gates that close and all that stuff. Adequate parking for vehicles, and then you go inside the house. But the heavy ones that we're hitting on are safety ones. Smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, fire extinguishers, screens over wood burning stoves or fireplaces, number of bedrooms. Does the house have a basement? Is it being used as a recreational area? Are people living in the basement? Are there handrails on staircases? Electrical box panels, are they clearly marked? Are immediate neighbors notified that the house is being rented? Is good neighbor brochure being part of the lease agreement? And finally, is a local contact person designated in case that the owner is not here on the island? Can they be called to take care of an issue or a problem? The problem when we passed this law was that we handed out a self-inspection. But we're handing out a permit. We're accepting the fact that somebody has said, you do all these things, got all these things in place. We could be liable. And Reed agrees with that. And he's very uncomfortable with the fact that we accepted, issue a permit from that office saying everything is okay, even though they've signed document and it's been notarized. I think we need to go one step forward. I think, a 30-minute inspection at each one of these rental properties. That's why we have to look at our fees. We have to make this, it's all rental properties, short-term, long-term. You've got to make sure that these homes are in fact safe. Things that I said on the very bottom about things that we recommend, which I think people should be aware of. Homeowners, have you notified your insurance carriers that you're renting your house? If you haven't, and something like this happens, you could be in trouble. Second thing, taxes. You're paying Suffolk County tax. Well, we don't want to get involved in that as a town. We're just telling you it's a requirement. So if you choose to do it, it's follow the law, great. If you don't, you're putting yourself in jeopardy. I just think that it's time to revisit what we do in terms of rental properties here on the island. We have a couple hundred of them. We don't register with the registration is not kept up with the number of properties that are actually being offered for rent. We need to tighten up on that, and we need to make sure that and this is not about government breaking, overseeing you and micromanaging your property. This is about safety. This is about us issuing a town permit and saying that your home has been inspected and meets these requirements. So Mr. Karen just walked into the room. I'd love to have him come right up to the microphone and just have a word or two about what we just talked about. I'm sure you were watching it on television.
Well, I actually was in the other office, but the end of it.
We talked about the thing that we talked about the need, since we do hand out a building, a permit to authorize people, this home is, this checklist has been satisfied. And so I turn it over to you for your comments to the board.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we're going to regulate it, I think we have to regulate it. I think that I think it's both a, financial and a moral liability to be approving these things without verifying that the buildings are safe. And, the one in Sag Harbor, I think kind of is a mandate that we do something about it.
Yeah, I would suggest, because it's not a work session agenda item, that we stop there
Okay.
and we put it on for a work session agenda item.
Okay.
But just, and maybe interested.
Yes, I would agree with that. Gives us a little time to think about that.
Yeah.
When I said that to everybody, you might want to take a look at the inspection, particularly you guys. You know what you normally look for. I think I hit most of the major safety points, but I'm sure I missed a few. But something that's requires 30 minutes, you go through the house and just make sure that these things are adhered to. And I'd feel a lot more comfortable if issue a permit. That's fine.
Reed, we'll put it on the agenda because we're also going to need to discuss post-compliant.
Right. Yeah.
So we'll put it on the
Yeah.
agenda for next week or two.
Yeah, I think, that's something that I think we came to an agreement because I think we discussed that already with the idea of that contract not satisfying the needs of what we could use that $12,500 better right in that department to take care of this particular need, in my estimation, because this is critical.
All right. Well, thanks, Reed. Anything else, Jim?
No.
Okay, Amber?
I just wanted to circle back to WQI funding because we have, next week is our town board meeting.
Yes.
And so our 3 p.m. work session is just supposed to be truncated in that. I would like to make the suggestion that we go forward with how we've been doing the expenditure of WQI funds and flip this on, start the public hearing on next week's meeting.
Yeah, especially it's a significant amount of money. I think we should.
Yeah, I mean, it's big money. And I think just, the public weighs in on our budget. Public, has to weigh in on CPF property acquisitions. We have to have public hearings. So I feel like this should also fall into that realm. So even if it's not mandated, that we continue that process. So we'll need to draft up a resolution.
Okay.
And that's it.
BJ?
Yeah, so WAC has been doing this series of talks, meetings at the library.
Mhm.
The last one was terrific. I had to leave it a little early for WQI meeting was on the 18th. But the next one's on the 15th. I don't actually have the topic handy. On September 15th at 5:30 at the library, WAC, there to discuss Shelter Island water, which is becoming sort of a hot button issue right now because we're in a drought. And that leads me to the other thing to remind everybody that on the website, just on the first page is a teardrop, a water drop. You click on that, you can find out where we are in our drought guidance. Coming home yesterday evening and there was somebody with a sprinkler. I know it's allowed. I'm just saying that they're watering a completely dried up, burnt out patch of grass. What was the point of that? I mean, it's not bringing it back right now. And if you threw down grass seed, you're a fool. This is not the time to do that. So just, everybody take a step back from the watering, unless of course it involves tomatoes, in which case go ahead and water. Tomorrow, I'm meeting, not sure who else is at the meeting with a citizen of Shelter Island too, who have questions about the topics that we've been discussing. And I just want to make sure that everyone knows, email us, call us, set up a meeting. We'll have a chat. We have a lot of information coming over the transom over the next 2 weeks about these vital topics, housing, PDRs, et cetera. And after that, after that information has been presented and digested, we will probably try to have a public meeting for everybody. But in the meantime, if you've got burning questions, please contact us because we're available. That's all I have.
Okay. Stephen, anything?
Just want to piggyback on what BJ said. So September 6th is an important date for that. We have
7th.
7th.
It's the 7th. It's the holiday. So we actually have our meeting on Wednesday that week.
Right.
Okay, so the 7th,
Seventh.
This our
but the 6th is going to be Chafab or the 7th is going to be Chafab?
7th is where we're having the presentation done at.
Okay, so the TDR presentation, I'm talking about when is the next Chafab meeting? Because that's when the housing plan,
The
Sure,
first.
housing
first.
that's the first.
First.
Okay, so the
And
first,
then it's all getting presented at the work session on the 7th.
Yeah, so Thursday, 2 days.
all right, so
from now.
this Thursday, okay, so I just want to make it clear to the public that the draft community housing plan or the draft survey will be presented to Chafab this Thursday at what time? 7 p.m. And then on the September 7th, because of the holiday, then the TDR consultant is going to come give a presentation on TDRs and some preliminary information on what would be our local TDR program, if we can even have one, and what it may look like. But very preliminary, rough information at that point. But then again, TDRs generally. So that's a very important work session for people who want to learn more about TDRs to attend.
So question about that. That's a truncated work session. Do we want to meet earlier? Do we want to change that time or not? To allow for, I don't know what.
So
I'm just throwing it out there.
the two things that are penciled in right now
Yeah.
are the TDR presentation is definitive. And then we have housing plan. Those are the only two items.
Yes, that's perfect. So
On the
we'll keep
7th?
it at those two items.
The work session, because there is a meeting later,
Mhm.
but that's the only two items on the work session.
Hearings. Yeah. Okay. All right. So maybe not necessary is what you're saying.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll have the spotlight.
All right.
Okay. Zadi, Amber, you have anything?
I'm okay, thank you.
All right. Do you have the hand up? John, Bill?
Afternoon, everybody.
Hi.
Bill Darrow, DERROUGH. Councilman Culligan, I wanted to commend you on your comments on the addiction issues. I know several parents who've lost children. But it's an important issue everybody needs to pay attention to. And as I own a rental property in California, I'd be perfectly happy to submit to your suggestions. So I think every owner of rental property should be willing to have their properties up to speed. For all the reasons you spoke about. With respect to the wastewater treatment facility, my understanding is it's designed to solve the problem of nitrates in the center, the 7 town buildings and the school. So I think a lot of people want to know whether that facility can ever be connected later on to housing, affordable or otherwise. I think that needs to be clear to people. My understanding is it's been sized for the town owned building needs. So I don't see how it could be ever connected to other things, but I think that needs to be clear to people up front. And then separately, but related, Mr. Lombardo spoke about PFOS, PFOA, these chemicals and things that people are worried about. My understanding is that the nitric system does not solve for those issues.
There's
Not-
additional treatment after nitrates that will.
Okay, so I think people will need to hear about that, including pharmaceuticals and other kinds of stuff that gets into the water. Because on their website, it looks like it talks about nitrates. And then on the September 7th TDR presentation, I would hope that that's more interactive, not just that people can ask questions and kind of follow up questions, not just sort of hear a presentation and then, have a couple minutes at the end to say something.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments.
It's a presentation at a work session. I'm not sure. That's going to be the place. Let's see how it goes.
It's a preliminary report to the town board on TDRs. So it's not really an open forum.
I see. Jan Sudo. So I have a question. I actually had a question from Mr. Lombardo, but he left us. So I guess I'll have to ask to the board. For those of us who just got interested in this wastewater treatment facility project, we did some reading, and the initial proposal was for the school to have its own system. I think it's called Fuji Clean, something or other.
Yes.
And then the original Lombardo's assignment was to hook up just those 8 municipal buildings, probably 20 toilets in total. And Mr. Lombardo said at his presentation that there are 2 town-owned sites nearby, which is next to the library, next to the fire department. So why was that not sufficient to just design a system right there for those 8 buildings? Okay. AIS system is probably.
I'm sorry. Can I? No. Wait. Can I interrupt? No, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you. Joe Fenora jumped on. So if you have a question, you may want to repeat yourself because he might be able to answer. You were asking for Pio. Yeah. Pio's not here, but he's well versed in it. So I'm just saying it. You might.
So you want me to repeat this, or
because Joe just
from the very beginning?
If you want an answer, yeah, he's
okay. So my question was, why? What's the rationale for this big system, which is located a mile away from the center at the cost of 3.1 million, whereas the initial proposal was for the school to have its own system, which I understand from reading was 800,000, and the separate system for the 8 municipal building, which would be probably 8 times $25,000. That's what AI system is. Okay, so what's the rationale?
Why don't you answer that, Joe?
What's the rationale for the system versus what was proposed before?
Sure. Yeah, we've discussed this a number of times. The answer to this is also included in the engineering report, both the draft and now the final. But the basis for the rationale is that the school was acting independently prior to this RFP being issued to solve the problem of their failing septic systems. To act independently, a replacement system would cost approximately $800,000 to $1 million, and it would include a system that only serviced the school and only provided IA technology to reduce the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus. Once we issued our RFP, which included an analysis of all of the municipal buildings in town, we understood that there was an enormous savings cost-wise and efficiency with treatment if we were to combine all of those municipal buildings and the school to one system. That one system does cost $3 million, but it does include treatment to 8 new parcels rather than just 1. And it allows us the opportunity to treat beyond just nitrogen and phosphorus, which is offered by IA technology. It allows us to treat for emerging contaminants, pharmaceuticals, PFOs, and it also addresses the fact that our other municipal buildings, Town Hall, the library, Justice Court, those facilities also have non-conforming septic systems. So in one fall swoop, we can combine all of these town buildings to one centralized treatment at a lower cost and to a higher level of treatment than if the school was to embark on their own independent system. And that's the path that they were on. But like I said, that was prior to the issuance of this RFP. And all of that information is contained in the engineering report for your reference.
All right, can I have a follow-up question? Okay, I mean, most of those buildings, I look at the report, they have very small generation of the sewage or wastewater, about the same as just one residence, okay? 300 gallons per day, 400 gallons a day. That's what the residential houses are rated for, okay? So why not just, even if some of the buildings don't have a room for the septic system, somehow they exist and they have water, but right now we're told that there is no room. But even if they have no room and there's no way to grandfather those buildings or grant some exemption, why can't, there are 2 spare parcels where sufficient size system could be put in place and a fraction of the cost.
If you read the report, it states that it gives us the ability to handle the PFAS and the pharmaceuticals and anything down the road, whereas the school's program strictly handled nitrogen. That was it.
Oh, yeah.
Number 2, as far as the nitrogen is concerned, it's been estimated that this project that we're hoping to put in place is the equivalent of 150 IA systems in houses. So it's not, a little bit here, a little bit there. We've had a nitrogen problem in the center of town for 38 years I've lived here, and we're trying to address it.
I'm not quite sure if I understand this comment on 150 systems in terms of volume handled.
What we're treating is the equivalent of 150 individual units treating 150 individual houses.
It's very concentrated coming out of a municipal building because there are no other functions going in. Do you understand what I mean? The toilet is it. You know, it's not laundry, it's not showers, it's, and the IAs don't work very well under those conditions.
Did you consider systems like there are now urinals and toilets separating urine from the rest, and those could be pumped out so they completely don't go to the water? I mean, those are new technologies.
We sent an RFP out for recommendations. This is the firm we hired, and this is their professional recommendation. That's the best project to happen, to solve our problem.
And when we put the.
But was there an independent assessment? Because, you know, obviously,
By who?
by independent consultant who is not going to be installing.
Hire a consultant to check the consultant. I mean, we put an RFP out, we do our homework.
But Joe is our town engineer, does a pretty good job at screening some of the.
This is not a proprietary design. This is designed by a licensed engineer, just like any other wastewater specialist would include. This is a multifaceted system with components that are would be considered off the shelf technologies to any designer. So this is not a proprietary system like a Fuji Clean or Hydro Action.
I got that. So that's a justification for going from 1 million to 3 million, basically.
Part of that was when Joe and I met with the school, we felt that what they had proposed was a short-term solution. They weren't thinking long-term. They weren't thinking about future problems. And we also felt that
more costly on an individual basis. Their costs alone would represent a third of this project, and we're able to include eight facilities.
And the real key to it is taxpayer money is taxpayer money, but you're paying to the school, paying to the town. So we want to get the best bang for our buck.
No, absolutely. I agree with this. There's no such thing as free money. Money comes eventually from taxpayers. No, grants are not free money. Eventually, it all comes from taxpayers, but whatever.
You've been like 10 minutes, but
Okay, so let me ask last question.
Can I recommend that this gentleman schedule a time to speak directly with me? I'd be happy to answer these questions, and perhaps in a less public setting where I can address any of his outstanding concerns.
Okay.
Good.
Very good. Thanks.
Who's beeping?
Anybody else? I don't have a screen.
Screen, hold on.
Yeah, nobody's got their hand up.
No.
Okay, Julia?
Just the sound this week is worse than ever. In a couple of cases, Jerry, I couldn't hear you at all. You cut out totally. Also sound from Stephen and BJ and Amber were not good.
Oh, thanks, Julie. Well,
All right,
I wonder if you still got those old microphones.
I'm gonna have to get rid of it.
I have a question, and maybe it is for Councilman Colligan. It wasn't clear to me. The survey that you distributed, was that copies of the Community Housing Board survey?
No.
Was that a survey that you constructed yourself?
it was a survey that I constructed myself because after looking through that, there were certain questions that weren't addressed that I wanted to see addressed. So I thought I'd get some, again, based on the discussions that we were having here about the referendum for November, and have we provided, and it was, when you walk the town, people that had a tendency to be very much probably pro-housing were leaning towards the idea that, gee, I would love to support this, but I don't have enough information. And I needed to be able to, just even in a small community like Silver Beach, to be able to get some feedback from people who I trust. Again, without their names on it, was done anonymously. So, I did get that feedback, and some of it is very good. Some of it is, it's not earth shattering, but it does influence my thinking about how I want to go with this. And
can I interrupt for a minute? Can I interrupt for a minute? So are you open to receiving homemade surveys by anybody else on this or any other issue. I wonder what the town issued and distributed a policy about what its committee members may and may not do. And I wonder if the town sanctions this kind of surveying done kind of in an ad hoc way. I ask you to consider whether that's something that maybe.
It's a valid point, but I did bounce this off and I did share this with people before I even used it. So, but it's a valid point. I'm sorry if you're criticizing me for the need to go out for my own justification to go out to find that information. That's just something I did on my own. If you want to take issue with that, that's great. I've got broad shoulders. I'll suck it up and take it. But
Anybody else?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, my name's Paul Udon. I have some questions. I went to the open house for community housing next to the library in July.
remember,
And I lost my train of thought for a second. And a council member told me that basically the problem or maybe the genesis of the big housing push is goes back to volunteerism, the fire department and EMS. I was wondering and they're volunteers and they don't get a payroll, but what things has the town tried to do to mitigate this if it has come to, a loggerhead, that there is a crisis?
The crisis is more community-wide housing. Part of it is the emergency services, the ambulances and the volunteer firemen. But it's bigger than that. The one thing we did do was we budgeted last year $130,000 for paid EMT because we're losing volunteers.
On shift.
We're going to put more in this year for it. So I know sometimes you'll see in the paper, well, if we have a problem housing EMTs and firemen, we can address that, but we're looking at a bigger picture. We're looking at police that can't afford to live here, teachers that can't afford to live here, ferry captains that can't afford to live here because they can't afford to buy a house. They can afford once they're here, but it's the way land has gotten so out of control price wise.
Well, let me do a spinoff then. Is the town considering that every person is, the opportunity to buy a house is there. I've lived in a house I've owned since I was like 23. I've owned homes.
Every person shouldn't own a house.
No,
It's looking at rentals primarily to begin with.
Second point.
but I think when you mentioned you're thinking about your second point, when you talked about the EMS and the fire department and police and teachers and local support, local workforce, that's part of the equation. It is part of it. Your second point that you made about, have you thought about other things you can do, is a legitimate question.
Can I address
Yes,
that? Yeah, because LoSAP is that. A decade ago, LoSAP, the fire department and EMS did, it's a pension plan. So if you volunteer, you put your 20 years in, you get X dollars a month, thinking that maybe that would alleviate or help ease the need for the second job. Because if you're a volunteer, it's almost your second job. My husband's on fire. So they did that and it didn't help. I mean, maybe it helped retain some of them. It might have, but the numbers on the fire department are still getting kind of low and they're getting very old.
Okay. The second question is, if I'm remembering the number, in 10 years, maybe we could do 100 units. How many units just like the
100?
How many units is the town expecting to put together in the next 10 years?
Can I answer that?
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to, if you're thinking about the CPF, the referendum that we're talking about.
I'm thinking about the whole picture because.
Well, just from that, like a financial standpoint, if that generates $500,000 a year, that buys you what, 3/4 of a household on Shelter Island, maybe 3/4. Just say one.
Well, you own the land, so,
Maybe, no, only for a couple, not for a lot.
okay.
For a couple, really, right?
That's what I'm asking.
Once we get a couple, wait a minute, once we get a couple done, we get a couple done, and then we're gonna have to buy land.
Can I just interject? As I said earlier, I don't know if you were here. We're going to have a presentation
Oh, yeah.
from our consultant regarding the TDR program, and
And-
we'll also have the draft housing plan. Those are going to educate the town board and the residents as to what this will look like or potentially.
And how, when?
Ask that question now.
Okay.
So how long are we going to have to mull over these things before we go in for a referendum?
Well, this
As long
Thursday,
as we can get you.
this Thursday, it's being presented to the Community Housing Fund Advisory Board. They're the group who's working on it. Then on the 7th, it's being presented at the work session. So you'll have October.
Okay.
There is a sense of urgency, that your point is well taken. I believe that's one of the discussed point that we have to get quite quicker because people answers the questions.
Now,
Time's up, sir. You have 3 minutes.
oh, were you in a hurry?
Yeah, 3
I am.
minutes. There's the rules if you want. They're in the front. You got 3 minutes per speaker.
Give me your last question. Yes.
All right, my last question is, if the referendum is not passed by the islanders and the transfer tax thing does not happen, if according to what I see in the reporter and somebody from the council wrote it, you will still proceed with community housing. So I'm saying if people in the island didn't take other people's money and spend other people's money, which would come from that transfer tax, do you believe that that's still your mandate?
The intent was never to take taxpayer money for housing. If the referendum goes down, we'll find another way to finance it, i.e. private sources.
Oh, that's funny.
That's what the whole point of the housing plan is to get community input and develop what the community thinks the housing plan.
Well, I'm wondering because the community, other than what we see in the paper and what we can do off the Zoom, the community, I don't think has been polled. So if the referendum fails, which I don't think it will, but if the referendum fails, I kind of feel like the community is saying that maybe tap the brakes on this.
Thank you.
That's just me. Okay.
Thank you.
I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience?
I don't see anyone on Zoom.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion. We go into executive session to discuss contract negotiations. We have 2 bargaining units we have to.
Second.
Bye.
All right.